All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb here Thursday afternoon. And at the Champions Classic in Chicago, we sent our cameras around the United Center asking fans for their questions and comments about college basketball. We got some good ones lined up, Doug. First, Mike has an interesting question for you.
I'd like to ask Doug how much he think he would be worth if he was playing today with NIL.
It's a great question. You know, it's one that honestly, like every one of us ask ourselves, right? It's like, man, how much would I be making? A good amount. A good amount. My guess would be, because remember I transferred, I don't know, the Notre Dame coming in, I think I would have done well initially at Notre Dame. But at Oklahoma State, I think it would have worked out well for me. Probably six figures, you know, into mid six figures. And I was not afraid to do appearances, not afraid to show up, and not afraid to ask.
You weren't afraid to do appearances?
No, you still did appearances back then. You just didn't get paid for it. You did it out of charity.
I'm kidding. I know you enjoyed doing appearances.
I do. Listen, I have great connections with my school. I feel very much tied to it and the boosters, and it's really helped my entire life. Helps me to you know, from the time I got out. Like I always thought that was traditional NIL, right?
Go ahead.
I just always thought. I mean, I've been anti-NIL because I knew it would lead to pay for play, right? But you know, for example, my senior year before the season started, I was a bartender at Willie's Saloon in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and I would pour the stiffest drinks in Stillwater. Now, the tips were probably a little bit better than they should have been, but I had to report it and do all that stuff. And you know, had I been able to do, you know, my own night and make more money and do a door charge, it would have been great. I would say, how much would I be worth? I think I'd be worth low six figures. Six figures.
Grade yourself 1 to 10 as a bartender. How good were you?
Ooh. I would say like a 8.5. Here's what I was good at. Okay, I didn't really have a liquor license. Okay, what happened was the summer before I stayed there for a summer semester, and it became like our hangout. And there was, Willie's is famous because that's where Garth Brooks first started playing. And it's not a country bar, it's just a bar, but they have live music. Well, Wednesdays was karaoke night, so we started with, like, Wednesday night became our spot. Then it became Wednesday, and then Thursday. And so I said, like, well, I'm here, like, why don't I just work and do the bar and do the door? And then from the door, one night they didn't have a bartender. Like, dude, don't tell anybody you don't have a liquor license. Go down and get a liquor license. Not that hard. Cost like $80. And I just told people I had it. So I was good. I mean, it's not that hard in a college town, right? I want a cold beer, or I want, you know, vodka something, you know, whatever. So, or, you know, rum and Coke. And the stiffer that you pour, the more the tip's going to be. That's pretty much simple. So I was probably 8.5. I could not make like a gimlet. This is before the days of a Moscow Mule, but there were lots of drinks that I didn't know how to make that I would steer somebody into the, oh, you want that? Well, you know what you really want? You really want a vodka soda, because that one I can make.
All right, let's get this thing back on the rails. All right, next, Jonathan has a question about the tournament.
So, Doug, question for you. What are your thoughts on the potential expansion of the NCAA tournament to 96 teams and beyond? Personally, I really like 68 and think it should stay that way, but it seems to be a pretty controversial topic. Some coaches really want to see more, so would love to hear your thoughts.
You know, obviously I don't love it. I mean, the 64-team field was perfect. But as I think, both know, one of the huge issues in college basketball is you have the haves and the have-nots. And the haves are super popular, super important, and they're going to drive this thing. And so the question is, for those low D1 schools, how do they keep their automatic bids in the tournament? Because the big boys are coming for them, right? This is a real discussion. Like, one of the reasons that I think Mark Few wants Gonzaga out of that league is not that he doesn't like the WCC, but he fears them losing their automatic bid. right? That's a real discussion. And, you want to be, those big leagues are going to get all the bids. And at some point it's going, the problem with the NCAA is that it's more like the Senate than it is the House, right? In the Senate, every state has 2. In the House, it's based upon your population, right? That's what we need, I think, and what we want in college basketball is, yes, those smaller schools, smaller conferences, Cinderellas are important, but let's not undersell the fact that the big boys drive the bus. That's why people go. And so I'm at my core against it. I understand that the reason its popularity is really the bracket, not the games. And the bracket is perfect at 64. But I'm also a realist, and more games is more money. And if it gives us a chance to make sure that the little guy still has a seat at the table, I actually would kind of have that discussion. I'm willing to have that discussion. What do you think?
My thought on this is, how about on Tuesday and Wednesday, we play playing games all day, and it's mids against highs. That's what I would do. Some form of that. You can do however many, because you'll get people interested then. I'm not really all that interested on Tuesday night on seeing 2 16s play and then having 2 high major teams that had every opportunity to get in play each other. And they were fringe teams. So
I think that could be great, right? Like, you expanded the first 4 to be 4 different sites, each night on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, right? Where they play a playing game to get in the NCAA tournament. I would before that. But again, what you're offering up, and this is really important, is high major versus lower mid major. So I'm with you. I don't. What the big boys want is they want those 15 and 16 seeds to go away. But it's weird because they also don't
make the tournament, and those make the tournament what it is. That's the problem. You can't make them go away because that makes the first 4 days what it is. And I understand you may not want those teams going too deep. But, all right, some fans didn't ask questions, Doug. You know what they did? They just gave us a prediction. They gave us a prediction. That's what Dave did. Dave.
In the finals, Kentucky's going to play Duke, and it's going to be another shot heard around the world by Mitchell or Reed, Shepherd, and we're going to win at least by 10.
Hey, Doug, you got that same hat, don't you?
That big hat? Nothing says Big Blue Nation more than that big hat. The skin was definitely, he was smiling, and it was dark. There was some lubrication there. And then the mention of Reed Shepherd, because that, and who played well. But there's no doubt Big Blue Nation wants him to take the game-winning shot. We're going to win by 10 against Duke. Okay. That's a prediction.
Just try to get to the Final Four. If Cal can get back to the Final Four with this Kentucky team, he's done a hell of a job because it is young, talented. But the other thing is, again, we talked about it earlier, how impressed we were. But what I'll say to you, Doug, is Justin Edwards did not look good. DJ Wagner did not look good. Antonio Reeves he had the ultimate green light, and again, made a few, but he didn't look very good. They were in it with all those 3 guys, but at some point, you might look at it of like, well, if they don't start to come along, you start to worry about, like Justin Edwards. I love Doug. I love him, but here's the problem with Justin Edwards. He's playing with freshman guards that really aren't going to get him the ball where he needs it. They're not going to make his life any easier this year, right?
It's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. I do think that Reed Shepherd is going to earn some more minutes, not because he's as talented as DJ Wagner or any of the other guards, but because he made some shots, but he's also a ball mover. They just need guys sometimes to just move the ball. Dillingham is not. He's going to try and go get buckets. And DJ is going to try and go downhill and just beat you with speed, toughness, and athleticism. So they need some movers. And Reeves is trying to, because he's the vet, he's trying to be the alpha. So I see that. I also think there's another team that their rotations are going to look different, not just if they get the bigs healthy, but as they try and figure out what they have. That's just the reality. I mean, Trey Mitchell transfers in there. They didn't know they had him until, what was it, midsummer? So there's still, or late summer, they're still feeling out who they are. I don't think it's a national championship team. It's a bold prediction, and one in which is the most cliche style of predicting it in all of basketball. Big Blue Nation, big hat, lubed up, post-game, really excited.
I got to get one of those. I got to get one of those hats. All right, next, the last question. Julian has a recruiting question.
The only question I would ask, I guess, is as a high school basketball coach, what exactly are coaches looking for when they're looking for prospects? So each coach I know says different things as far as what they're looking for when they're recruiting a player. But I know there's got to be something that everybody's looking for. So what is that one thing that you can tell a high school prospect, okay, this is what they're actually looking for, just so everyone's clear and on the same page?
Doug?
What is it? I mean, look, first you have to have the talent. I mean, but remember that when you commit a scholarship to a guy, and now you're committing NIL to a guy, it's a lot more about the other stuff. Are you a good teammate? Are you going to show up on time? Do I have to chase you to class? All these other kind of little things. And I will tell you, there's a lot of talented players, but if you lead with, hey, what's the NIL? It turns a lot of coaches off. It just does. So they want guys that are about one thing, winning. Because the more you win, everybody makes more money. It's really that simple. So, and how do you win? You win with culture guys that have to be talented. I think in terms of skill, I think shooting and basketball IQ is making a dramatic comeback. I think the overall speed, athleticism, guys that can jump to the moon, it's really hard not to bite that apple. But I know several coaches who said, hey, guys, we got to rethink how we look at who we're recruiting, because all these sets, all the stuff, it doesn't matter if the ball doesn't go in. And all the coaching and thinking, if the player can't think, it doesn't matter if he can't take what you're saying and put it into play. So I do think that basketball IQ and skill has taken a step above that of raw athleticism. And then the last thing is toughness. If you're not tough, you can't really play college basketball. You just get pushed around. It's a big thing.
I'll say this too, Doug. It's obviously changed with high school kids over the last couple of years, where all these coaches are looking for transfers right now, especially with the extra year, COVID year. Do you think that flips back at any point soon, where it starts to tilt back to the high school player instead of the transfer? Or do you think it's just going to be, hey, we need older dudes? That's really what has won championships and enabled teams to go deep lately.
Well, I think everybody says the transfer portal. It's not really the transfer portal. It's the ability to play right away out of the portal. So, I mean, the first step in kind of leveling it back off is that they've denied many of these second transfer waivers. That's still good. There's still going to be the second transfers, because if you're a grad student and you graduate on time, you can transfer and play right away. There's no cause for the waiver. You still have the COVID year guys. I think when the COVID year guys, you still have 2 more seasons. And when the COVID year guys go away, I think that younger players will come back in. But they have to incentivize colleges to taking high school freshmen, right? Because, what's the incentive? I have to beat somebody in recruiting, which means I probably have to give a kid NIL that he's not really going to earn his first year. And then if I don't play him, and the parents or the agent or the handler is not on the same page, I mean, I could redshirt him, or I could play him very little. These are bad words. It's hard to keep depth when a kid gets mad, or a kid doesn't want to see through the process and thinks you're going to take a transfer, and he's gone after his freshman year. So I think that what the lay person doesn't understand is the ability to transfer and not sit out hurts high school kids in recruiting. It really, really does. It does detrimental harm that is not recoverable. And so I think that is the only thing that will completely flip it back, is if you have to go back to some form of sitting. If that doesn't change, high school recruiting outside of the top 75 or 100 will be minimized in comparison to years in the past.
All right, coming up next, first impressions are everything. We take a long look at some of the best conferences in the land on the other side of the break.